Everything we've done so far is vector, shapes formed by points and paths and filled with color, or type formatted and styled according to the design. But when it comes to importing and using images, Illustrator is equally as capable. So let's take a look at placing images into our document, and positioning, scaling, masking them, and adding effects. And I'll also show you some very useful techniques when importing layered Photoshop files and the wonderfully flexible Edit Original feature. Alright, let's start dropping some images into our design now. What we'll do is we'll come over to the Layers panel and make sure that we have our Images layer unlocked. Remember, we created this earlier on and placed in our blue boxes here. They would just sort of give us an idea of where the images might fall later on. Now, we are going to focus up here on our A4 page, so let's just select that blue area and by all means go ahead and zoom up so we can see this a bit more closely. Now what we're going to do is bring in one image and drop it into this location, and if you remember earlier on when we brought in our type, we simply went to the place command to do so. Well, exactly the same rule applies to bringing in images. So simply go up to the File menu, come down and choose Place, and then from the project files on your desktop, let's go across into our Images folder now, and we'll come down and let's choose this image here called Stelvio Hut, and you see this is a TIFF file, okay? So go ahead and hit Place. Now before we do, first thing I want you to check is in the lower left hand side that we have the link icon turned on, okay? I'll explain that a little bit more later on, but do make sure that's turned on right now. So we can go over to the right now and simply hit Place, and that image will drop down into our page. Now because we've already got our blue area here and you now know how to do alignment of things, we could easily use that to align this centrally and drop it into exactly the right location. So simply shift click on our blue background and then once again click on that blue shape to turn it into a key object. Then we can come up to the control panel and align centrally on both axes, and that drops it into final position. Now whilst we're here as well, we can see that our logo, even though we scaled it down earlier, is still just a little too big. I like the wording here just to make sure it doesn't touch this building over there. So I'm going to come over here to the logos layer, unlock that, select the logo, get the scale tool, just your S key, and option click on the right hand side to bring up our dialog box. And we'll change this to say 98% because I'm going to say OK, and then just do our progressive scaling shortcut, Command D or Control D on the PC. So I'll bring it down to round about there. Now this image is really nice. I think it works very well for this design. This is actually an image I took at the top of a mountain called the Stelvio, which is right on the border of Italy and Switzerland. In fact, over this mountain, literally over that peak that you can see up there, is the Swiss border. So I think this is quite apt that we've got the tops of Italy and we have this literal very top of Italy image in the background. And I actually took this whilst I was riding my bike. I didn't stop and take this picture, so I'm quite proud at how that one came out. So as an image for the top of our design, I think this looks really very nice. Now remember when we placed it, I asked you to turn on the link button. There's a reason for that. What we'll do is we'll come up to the window menu and go down, and about halfway down you'll see we have a links panel. Alright, and let's bring that up. Now it comes in with the actions palette, so we could actually just separate that out because we're not going to need our actions. May as well hide any palettes we're not going to use. And you can see here in links, this is the TIFF file that we've just imported. So this basically keeps a reference between the Illustrator file and the imported image on the desktop or in whichever folder it was created in. So it's kind of like you would in InDesign or After Effects. You import files in, the original is always referenced from elsewhere. However, Illustrator does allow you to do something different. If we just select the image here and go to the flyout menu on the side, you can see there is a function called embed. Now if we hadn't chosen the link option when we placed the image in the first place, it would automatically be embedded. Now what embedded means is it doesn't retain the link to the one that's on the desktop anymore. It brings in all of the image data and stores it within the Illustrator file. Now sometimes that can be useful because it means you don't need to keep the two files. You can actually not even have the image anymore because the image is now part of the Illustrator file. However, it does make the file size of the Illustrator file bigger. You have to remember that if you import an image in and store it within the Illustrator file, it's got to become part of it. So that means it will take longer to save and open the document each time that you do so. So I would recommend that you always use links, and there are other advantages for doing so as well, such as Edit Original, which we'll see in just a second. So I wanted to point that out. Now what we can do, seeing as we are going to be using the links here and there, we could go ahead and drag that over and tab it onto the bottom of our doc over here so we can always pull that up in future when we need it. Let's go ahead now and bring in another image to our design, and what we'll do is come down here towards the bottom. We're going to bring in a grid of images that will sit in this area here. Now I've already got this prepared. We're not going to import 7 individual images and position them. I've actually got one image to allow us to do that. Now remember that this grid is actually stored on the background layer, so I do want to make sure that that layer is unlocked in our panel. We're just going to deselect and make sure we select our backdrop color layer before we import our image. So same as we did a second ago, just go up to the File menu, come down and choose Place. And once again, from the Images folder in the project files, let's go ahead and choose flyergrid.tiff, okay? And you can see I've actually got black spaces in here ready for the two artworks we already have in position in our Illustrator file. Once again, I'm double checking that the link icon is turned on down here in the bottom left-hand side, okay? So go ahead and place that. We can see it comes in. If we zoom in, it's a really nice montage of different images from these different parts of Italy. Again, these are images I've taken on a ride, and this is actually me up here with my Danish friend Lars at a race in Spain last year, actually. He actually has a body piercing and tattoo studio in Aarhus in Denmark, so secret life of a bike racer there. Now this image, as a grid, we want to place it into our background, so really replace this area we have. So once again, we can simply do an align function for this. So with our image selected, just shift select our grid in the background, then just reselect the grid to make it our key object. Once again, we can align centrally or top or bottom, whatever you fancy, because they are exactly the same size. But then what we'll do, just to tidy things up, let's select our image, go to the Edit menu and choose Cut. Alright, that'll cut it away and copy it at the same time. Now we can select our grid and get rid of it. Alright, then we can go back to Edit and simply choose Paste in Place. And you'll notice it comes down over the top of our coupon that's in the lower right hand side. So simply use the shortcuts you learned earlier on to send this object to the back, Shift Command left bracket on the Mac or Shift Control left bracket on the PC, and you'll see our coupon sits back at the bottom right hand corner there. If we deselect that now, the logo is in the center, the coupon's down here, we have a nice grid of images, and if we fit everything in the window, we also have a really nice image on the upper side here of our A4 page.